Okay, so if you're new to my channel and you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming Retrobat and various other retro emulation videos that I do on my channel, just Jamie. And also be sure to check out my Retrobat full playlist. I have got a lot in there at this point. So we're looking at Mame today on Retrobat, and this has been requested a hell of a lot in the past year or so. I've been doing Retrobat on my channel, so it's going to be a bit of a complex system in Retrobat because Mame isn't as simple as something like Nintendo NES or N64. As a lot of you are aware, there's many different ROM sets out there. Now, before I go on with this setup guide, if you just randomly downloaded a game for Mame off some random website, it's likely going to cause you a lot of confusion because you're not sure which version of Mame to use. So for that reason, a ROM set, or knowing what ROM set your games are in, is going to help you a great deal. So to explain this a little bit easier, if we go over to this wiki for Retrobat, in the arcade section, under available multi-machine arcade emulators, which of course is Mame, it will tell you just here ROM set versions, and it will also tell you here which version of Mame in Retrobat to use. So for example, today the version of game I'm using is from the .78 ROM set, and it's a Turtles game. So ideally then, for this particular ROM set game, I'm going to be using Mame 2003, and it will likely work on 2003 Plus as well. Now, if you've got a more current version of a ROM set from Mame, then it's going to be using the Mame current. So that's a really good way to start and identify why some of your games aren't working. And just remember, if you download a single game or from random places, that's likely going to annoy you because you're not sure which core to use in Retrobat. Now, another thing which can be a little bit confusing with Mame games is that you'll likely come across full non-merged sets, non-merged ROM sets, split sets, merged, and the list is endless. So you can have a little read here, but what it does say on this wiki is that merged ROM sets are not supported, as only the main game will be seen in Retrobat. So it's actually recommending us to use non-merged ROM sets. So if you want to download a ROM set, then you're going to need to look for a ROM set which says non-merged ROM sets. And then we can go into parent and child folders, that type of thing. So basically, the parent is the main folder and the child files belongs to that parent folder. So within a parent folder, you're going to have lots of different files inside, and they're pretty much called child files or something to that effect. And if we come out of here and I go into the main wiki, just scroll down a little bit, specifically for Mame, because Mame is an arcade system, it's going to tell you here exactly which libretto RetroArch cores in Retrobat supports Mame. So we've already established my .78 game, which is from a .78 ROM set, which is non-merged, is going to be compatible with the Mame 2003 and potentially 2003 Plus 2. And if we go down a little bit further, it will also tell you where your ROMs for Mame games are going to go. So as usual, they'll go into your ROMs folder and then just search for the main folder. But I'm going to show you that in a minute. And it's also going to tell us the file extension, but we can look for that in the back GUI. So what we're going to do then is take a look further down. You'll also notice with some ROM sets, you'll likely come across different folders inside a ROM set. You'll have a samples folder, for example. And samples, CHDs, are pretty much games. So CHD games are called that because of their file extension. And what we're going to do is just go to Retrobat, shortcut, right click on it, open file location. And I always recommend going to back GUI, system list. And if you just drop down system, now here is the list of systems, of course, which Retrobat supports. If you don't see this list, then check out my fully comprehensive guide. It's quite likely you're missing a couple of installation files. But for this, what we're going to do is just scroll down until we find Mame. And just like the wiki said to us, it's going to support zip files and 7-zip files. And again, it's also going to tell us which cores are going to support Mame games. So very simple way of finding what's what and which files in Retrobat are supported for particular systems. Now let's close out of this. And what I'm going to do is just go down to the ROMs directory. And if we scroll down to the main folder, I'm going to just drag and drop my .78 game, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I used yesterday during my Mame emulator standalone setup guide. Check that one out if you've not seen it, it's very cool. So that one's now in place. And what we're going to do is just open up Retrobat. Okay, so Mame is now appeared, cool stuff, and we're going to go into Mame. Here's my game. And first of all, let's obviously open up view options by pressing select. Just go down to advanced system options. Now, first of all, what we're going to do is check out emulator. Now, if we leave this to auto, many times your games might load. But in case you've got a different ROM set and you take a look at that wiki for which Mame core supports that particular ROM set, here's all your ROM sets just here. Now for this game, I know for a fact it works on auto, but I could also choose Mame 2003. So let's check out Mame 2003, because my .78 game just here is supported by this RetroArch core. So select, and let's just open up the game. As we can see, that's working really well. So let's just quickly get ourselves some artwork for this. So main menu, scraper, and scrape now. Now we can actually access the main menu whilst we're in that game, and I'm going to show you that in a second. So scrape and finish, game settings, update game list, yes, and here we go. So we've oddly got the Nintendo NES or Famicom artwork for that one, but anyways, and so we can actually make some adjustments whilst we're in the game itself. If we open up RetroArch, we can do lots of things from there. You can actually access the main menu whilst we're in the game as well, but if you're using a standalone Mame emulator like I did in yesterday's Mame setup guide as a standalone emulator, then you would need to go into its menu. But for this, like I said, you're pretty much good to go with a combination of Retrobat and RetroArch. So let's open up the game, and depending on which buttons you've got configured to open up RetroArch, that's where I'm going to go. Okay, so before we go into RetroArch, let's just take a look at that main menu. So again, just like RetroArch, controllers to get into this menu are going to vary. So once you find the key combination or button combination, we can access this menu whilst we're in the game. So first of all, let's look at dip switches. Now in dip switches, we can play around with coinage. You've got different lives, how many lives the game should start off with. We can also disable the demo sounds. And we can change the difficulty level for main games just here. So right now, this is going to be on very difficult. We can flip screen, and again, if you enable this, when we go back into the game or restart it, these settings should be in place. As we can see by rebooting the game, I've just used this as an example, but I flipped the image just to show you that using the main menu is actually working, and here we go. But let's take a look at the RetroArch menu now. So if you access this by pressing the buttons on your controller, which you've configured for this. So once we're inside the quick menu, which is RetroArch, and once you've figured out which buttons get you access to this quick menu, we can actually do a lot here. Let's start with save state. So say I'm playing the main game, and this goes for any system which is using RetroArch cores in Retrobat. We can save state. If we go here, save state slot has now been saved. And to load that state, it's just a simple case of going down to load state, and that's going to load from where you just saved it. Okay, so let's take a look at some video settings for main then. So view options, advanced system options. If we go to shader set, you can give this a really cool curvature CRT look. Let's just turn this on. So curvature is now applied. Decorations, as you could see a minute ago, we've got arcade decoration just there, but I'm going to take this off because I want to be using that curvature shader set to its full effect. Game aspect ratio, by default this is normally on auto. I'm going to actually put this down to full for this. Now integer scaling, I'm going to make sure this is on, but just remember, even if you leave it to auto, Retrobat is going to select the next option, so auto or on is fine. Vertical sync, I always suggest putting this one to yes to eliminate screen tearing. Visual rendering, we're going to smooth this game out so it's not so pixelated. Just go to turn on or keep it on auto. And with these settings applied, let's open it up again. Now my screen is still upside down because I accessed the main options just a minute ago. So let's go back into that. Okay, so easy and better way to get into that main menu to reverse flip the screen. So if we just go back into RetroArch, if you go into quick menu, and from quick menu, you can then go down to options, and then we're going to go to system. And if we go into system, just turn on display main menu. And if we come back out of here, manage core options, and what I'm going to do is just go to save content directory options. So this is going to save it for every main game you play which is using this particular core. So just save that. And if we come back out, as we can see, we now have got the main menu, which is easier. So let's reverse flip this. And we then need to go back into RetroArch, so use the correct buttons, and then we can disable this main menu. To disable that menu, what we're going to do then is go back into quick menu, down to options, down to system, display main menu, turn it off, and quick menu, and then we'll likely need to restart the game again for the reverse effect to take place. So restart the game, and whilst we're here, if we go down to cheat, we'll disable a cheat. And provided you followed my guides the other day about using cheats in RetroArch, follow that guide, you should now have a cheat menu come up. So for example, infinite lives player 1, that's already set to on. But there's other things we can enable just here, say one hit to kill. So let's just set this. And we're also going to set one hit to kill level 2.1 boss. So just scroll down to return to main menu. So obviously we're back into the quick menu for RetroArch, and what we're going to do is just go to the same place, so quick menu, scroll down to options, system, display main menu and just turn this one off, come back out, quick menu, resume. And everything is back to normal again. So as we can see, with applying that curvature mode, it looks really cool. So if that's the type of effect you want, then curvature and full screen under aspect ratio is the way to go. So we're going to look at some more things. If we just close at a Retrobat. So we're going to close out of Retrobat and I'm going to go through some more folders which you might need. So if we go to the Retrobat shortcut, open file location. Now we're going to go into BIOS folder. Now, some ROM sets that you might download, say for example you've got a Mame 2016 ROM set which uses the Mame 2016, then you're going to find the samples folder in here. And in the samples folder, your .chd games are going to go. And if we back out of here, in Mame 2014, you'll find the same in here. So normally, when you download a ROM set from Mame, you'll have a lot of .zip files, and you will also have folders. Now, inside the folders are normally the .chd file games. And remember, .chds go into the samples, and the rest of the games, if you've got sample CHDs in your ROM set, the rest of them, .zip size, will then go into the ROMs folder in here. I'm also going to show you how to make your main games look a bit more arcade-like. So if we just go to main menu by pressing start, updates and downloads. If we then go down to the Bezel project, download Mame, install. Bezel's installed successfully, and if we come out of here and go back into Mame, if we go into view options, advanced system options, under decorations, you're now going to see the Bezel project at the bottom. If we go in there, and I'm going to turn shader set to auto, and I'm going to go to game aspect ratio and turn everything to auto so this can show us full effect. And let's boot up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles again. And how cool is this? So for those of you yesterday who watched my standalone Mame setup guide, you pretty much got it here as well within Retrobat. So I'm not going to make you put up with me kicking some shell again in Turtles, but that's how you do it. So most games will have the artwork bezels on the side, just as we seen just there after downloading that bezels pack. Okay, so Sega HIKARU, and like I said in my intro, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So I'm going to show you how to get this up and running. So a very simple tutorial, this one. What we're going to do is do what I always do actually, just right click on your Retrobat shortcut, open file location, And from here, we're going to go to back GUI, system list as always, and system. And we're going to have HIKARU just here. And it's requiring just .zip extensions for this. So like I said, a very easy one. So let's actually look at the BIOS files you're going to need for this. So we're going to go into the BIOS folder. And there's nothing in there right now. They're on my desktop, and the BIOS files you need are to be in .zip format also, as well as your game. So I'm going to drag both of my BIOS files for this system into my BIOS folder. And they need to be as they are, so you don't need to put them inside any other folder. They just sit in there nicely like that. Now, there's a few games for this system, and the one I'm using is Star Wars Racer, pretty much made famous on the Sega Dreamcast. So under ROMs folder, you're going to find the folder to put this in, and here it is, HIKARU. And I'm going to just drag this one in here, and that's all there is to it, really. So let's open up Retrobat. And once we're inside Retrobat, we are going to find the logo for this system, Sega HIKARU. So let's just open this up, and I'm going to scrape some artwork for this. So scraper, scrape now. And that shouldn't take too long. Like I said, there's literally just a handful of games on this system. And once that's done scraping, what I'm going to do is just go to main menu, game settings, update game list, and really update game list. Yes. And here we go. So we got the preview video with this, and we got the artwork as well. So I'm going to open this up now, and it's going to ask us to install emulator, which is DMule. And DMule is very similar to Dreamcast, even got the Dreamcast logo just there. And that's going to boot us straight into the game, but I want to show you some settings actually. Now, I'm afraid I'm not going to play this game for too long. Just give it a quick test so you can see it's running. So let's just get out of here for now. So what I'm going to do is just exit out. And I'm going to go back into the emulators folder for this. So Retrobat, right click, open file location. And in my emulators folder, I should now have under DMule the emulator itself. So from here, I'm going to configure my PS3 controller that I always use for these videos. So configure controls. And for this, I'm going to go to the arcade section. So Joy 1. Now digital, you just need to define your controller to correspond with this. So digital down. So for digital, what I'm doing, I'm just using my D-pad on my PS3 controller. Analog is my left stick analog on my controller. And analog 2, I'm just using my right stick for this one. So once this is done, it's going to save. And also make sure to use a coin button. I'm going to use select on my controller for the coin button. Service, I'm going to just press number 1 on my keyboard. Now your push buttons are pretty much your action buttons for the games. So if you've got a lot of buttons on the controller you're using, just utilize your controller and make the most of that. And there we go. So once you've done this, just press OK. And I'm going to press OK again. Now, whilst we're in this emulator, I'm going to go back to config, and I'm going to go to video. And there's a few options here which I'm going to check, which is going to give you the best performance I found for this. So disable auto start, disable opaque modifier, and disable translucent modifier. Like I said, for me, that's the best settings. You've also got internal resolution, which are going to make your games look better. So I tend to keep this to 6 times on this one. And I'm also going to put aspect ratio to 16:9. Now, layers, I found that these, by changing them, don't really make a great deal of difference, but I'm going to just leave this one on 64. So let's OK this, and everything's now saved. And let's go back into Retrobat. Now, enter back into HIKARU again. I'm going to press select. Now, under decorations, we can put decorations on this, but it's not very arcade-like. This type of system was really meant for a big screen. So I'm going to put none on this. Shader set, I'm going to just go to Auto, but you can experiment with these different shaders. You also got scan lines there. So Auto, internal resolution, as I did a minute ago through the emulator itself, I selected this as 6 times. Vertical sync, you want to enable this one to eliminate any screen tear in your games. Game aspect ratio by auto, like I was just saying, games like this was literally made for 16:9 widescreen ratio TVs or whatever they were used for at the time. Screen type, we got a different selection here. So from my experience in this type of thing, VGA works best, and that's likely why it's going to detect VGA first if we put this to auto. Smooth games, again, if you leave this to auto, it's going to pick up on. So if you want to turn that off, turn it off, but just to let you know that bilinear filtering softens up your games. And under emulation CPU mode, I'm going to just leave this to auto as well. So we've done all the video settings, and let's open up Star Wars Pod Racer. And here we go, so my controller's actually working. I'm using my D-pad to go from easy, normal.
The young human boy, Anakin Skywalker. Start your engines.
So thankfully for your own sake, I didn't hear Anakin Skywalker say, yeah, I won. So you also notice that the gameplay in this is very different to the Dreamcast version that most people are used to. Okay, let's get set up with this guide then. So today I'm going to do a bit more of a simple guide for you, but I realise there's a lot of arcade fans out there, so that's the reason I'm going to be doing what's called CPS1, CPS2, and CPS3, which is Capcom series systems, which are obviously arcade systems. So before I start this setup guide, I just want to make some very clear. There seems to be a bit of a bizarre rumour about some t-shirts I wear being about 4.5 years old, and they were bought for me, so I'm not sure where this came from, but anyway, if you're new to my channel, let's just hit notifications so you don't miss any more Retrobat tutorials. And let's just get on with this. So what we're going to do first is just talk about the type of files or extensions you're going to need to get these CPS machines up and running through Retrobat. So I've got CPS 1, 2, and 3 just here. If we go into CPS 1, you can see I've got a .zip. And the same for CPS 2, another .zip, and CPS 3, a .zip. Now, if we go into back GUI and we check the system list under system, if we just navigate down to, say, for example, CPS2, you're going to find a variety of different extensions, but through testing for the setup guide, I found quite largely that .zips are the most reliable for all of these systems. So let's just go into the Retrobat directory. So right click on your shortcut to open the file location, which is always the easiest and simplest way to get to these places. And under ROMs, you're going to find CPS 1, 2, and 3. So if we open up CPS 1, I'm going to just drag this CPS 1 game inside of this ROMs folder. And same for CPS 2. It's a very simple setup guide, like I say, but I'm also aware that what's sometimes simple for some people isn't necessarily the case for others, which is why I do what I do on my channel, and I really enjoy doing it with some really amazing feedback, actually. So once those are in place, we need no BIOS files for this whatsoever. We're going to just open up retrobat.exe, and you're going to see these have now appeared. So I've got my PlayStation 3 controller. I'm going to start with Capcom 1. Now, be aware that Capcom 1, in this game's case, needs a different emulator rather than it being set from default emulator. So for this, I recommend selecting FB Alpha or FB Alpha 2012. If you leave this one to auto, it doesn't seem to work. So like I say, I suggest you use FB Alpha, which is Final Burn. So let's just open this one up to start with, and I'm going to grab some artwork. So main menu, scraper, and I'm going to just scrape the artwork for Cadillacs and dinosaurs. So obviously, once this has been scraped, what we're going to do is just go back into the main menu and update game list as usual. So game settings, update game list, yes. And there we go. So let's open this one up and just double check it's still set to Libretto FB Alpha, which it is. Okay, so as we can see, that's up and running, and that's running really well as well. I'm going to show you in a minute, if you're new to my channel, if you've not seen any of my other videos, I'm going to show you how to remove the bezels and make this into a 16:9 ratio, sort of updating the graphics to look a bit more modern, as it were. So let's move down to Capcom 2, and again, scraper, scrape now, just to get artwork for this. And it'll be the same process for this one. So once this is done scraping, just a case of going into main menu and then game settings and just updating the games list. So there we go. So this one's got the bezel on, and we can get rid of this in a minute, but I'm going to show you first this working. So let's just get out of that. And finally, we got CPS 3. So again, view options, advanced system options. So again, main menu, scraper, and scrape this now. And if you are new to my channel and you just stumbled across this video, check out my playlist for Retrobat tutorials. I've done a lot, and I like doing what I do. It keeps me happy and it gets people up and running with classics. So really update game lists, and there we go. So again, I'm going to go into this CPS 3 game, and it should boot straight up, and there we go.
Make up mind.
And what I'm going to show you next is you can alter the way these games look. Like I was saying a minute ago, we can certainly get rid of those bezels. And I think the best way to explain how this works is if I actually go back into CPS 2, and this was the game a minute ago, 1941 or 19XX, where you could barely see the screen, and that was due to the bezel I was using. So what I'm going to do with this is go to View Options, Advanced System Options. First of all, I'm going to take the decorations off, which is acting as the bezel. So none. And game aspect ratio, I'm going to put this onto 16:9. And to smooth up the gameplay and the pixelation, if you just go to integer scaling, put this to on. Vertical sync, I recommend putting this to on. That reduces any screen tear in your gameplay. And under visual rendering, I'd recommend also turning this one to on if you want a slight blur to your gameplay, which is again going to take away any pixelation. So let's boot up 19XX or 1941. And there we go. So what I'm going to do next is go back into CAPCOM 1 and Advanced System Options. And just to show you again how this works to take away bezels if you've got them enabled. Decorations, none. Game aspect ratio, 16:9. Integer scaling should be on. Vertical sync, I recommend to be yes. And if we go to visual rendering, I recommend just turning this on. And we're going to start our Cadillacs and dinosaurs again. Okay, before I start today's Retrobat and MUGEN setup guide, if you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe and like. It really helps my channel out a great deal, plus it gets you up-to-date retro emulation content as I release it. And check out my top Nintendo NES and also Super Nintendo games at the moment I just uploaded. So anyways, we're looking at MUGEN today for Retrobat, and it's actually very similar to Open Bore that I did a little while back. So if you've not checked out Open Bore yet, it's the same type of thing. It's creation through using old games and bringing them into new games. So first of all, what we're going to do is go to the Retrobat shortcut as always, open file location, and we're going to open up Bat GUI from here. And we're going to go to system list, and if we go over to EmuStation system file, if you've got several files here, just make sure at this point it's selected to ES_systems, and then we can drop down system menu. And if you don't see this, check out my fully comprehensive guide to getting Retrobat set up correctly. It's likely you're missing Visual C++ and DirectX, but anyways, the comprehensive setup guide will get you through that. So we're going to drag down until we find MUGEN. And here's MUGEN. So under file extensions, this is what the games that we're going to use need to be ending with as file extensions. So most importantly, .exe is the files that we're going to need. And as we can see here, under cores, Libretro, RetroArch cores, there is no RetroArch cores for this. MUGEN games are pretty much for Windows computers. So what we're going to do is just close all this down and take a look at the files. Now you can find MUGEN games online and they're free, so lots to look at online for MUGEN games, and you're going to find games from Street Fighter to Mortal Kombat to Sonic the Hedgehog. The list goes on, just like Open Bore. There's even Streets of Rage games people's created using the MUGEN engine. So we've got just here Mortal Kombat Project 4, and when you download these, they're likely going to come in zip folders. So if we extract these, for example, in this case, we got Mortal Kombat Project 4, we got .exe inside here. If we just drag this out, and once we've extracted this particular game, we need to extract this one too. So let's just open up this. Okay, so it's asking us to extract somewhere. So what I'm going to do is create a new folder on my desktop, new folder, and I'm going to call this folder Mortal Kombat 4, and that'll be fine for now. So I'm going to extract this into that Mortal Kombat folder that I've just created. So on my desktop, I'm going to look for that Mortal Kombat 4 folder, okay, and extract. Now the contents is now being extracted into that Mortal Kombat 4 folder, as we can see just here. Okay, so it's fully extracted now, and we can delete these zip folders. Now it's a bit of an odd one, this one, because it's it's packed in a pack, in a pack, in a pack. So if we open up this one, we need to get to the main folder. So if we drag this one out onto the desktop, okay. Let's just delete this Mortal Kombat 4 folder now. So first of all, let's just open up the game itself and see if this one's working. So we got two .exes in here, and the one that we're going to use is mkp.exe. If we just open, like I'm saying, they just open up like Windows games. Okay, so I just configured that to read from my controller. So what we're going to do with this folder is go to the Retrobat shortcut again, open file location, and we're going to go down to ROMs. And in ROMs, you're going to find that MUGEN folder. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is just place that one inside of there. And let's open up Retrobat. Okay, so if you've done this correctly, we got MUGEN, it says 35 games. We don't have 35 games, we got a game, so we need to go into MUGEN. And as you can see, this is literally the only MUGEN game I've got in that MUGEN ROMs folder for Retrobat. Now, the way to do this and to get one file to use, or maybe two files to use, is just go to View Options by pressing Select or Backspace on your keyboard. And from here, we're just going to go down to View Customization. If I press up, we're going to go right to the bottom where it says File Extensions. It says 11 selected. I'm going to press up again to go to the bottom, and I'm going to go to Select None. And what I'm going to do next is just choose .exe. So I'm going to select this one, and then go to back again. Now, as we can see, we got both X's. If you recall just a minute ago, we had a wind bug or a windy bug .exe and a Mortal Kombat P or MKP.exe. If we open up MKP from here, so this particular game doesn't seem to want to go to full screen like you normally would in a PC game. Okay, so after looking at the files for that Mortal Kombat game, there's actually no files there I can actually edit for full screen. That's not to say that other MUGEN created games won't have the ability to open games up in full screen. So what we're going to do next is take a look at another one. We got CAPCOM versus SNK2 just here. And again, this one is also in a zip folder. So what I'm going to do, just by using WinRAR, I'm just going to extract this game. It's now been extracted, so again we can now delete that archive. And if we open up Capcom vs SNK, let's just open up Capcom vs SNK2.exe.
Capcom. This is
So as you can see, I've just configured some controller settings for that one. So we're also going to put that inside of that MUGEN folder for Retrobat. So open file location again, ROMs, and we're going to go down to MUGEN again and just pop this one inside. Now if we open up Retrobat again, back into MUGEN, and as we can see, we now got Capcom versus SNK2. Now, if I didn't go to view options just now under view customization and file extensions, you would likely see lots more files here. So we can boot up Capcom versus SNK2 from here. So all is working well, and I'm also going to add, if you can actually set up a controller through the app itself, such as Capcom versus SNK, or the Mortal Kombat game, or anything else, if you can't get your controller working, the easiest way around this is by going to View Options, Advanced System Options, Edit Pad to Key, and you can map out your controller from here. So for example, if I go to D-pad up and just select that one, it's going to bring up a virtual keyboard. And in the game, for example, if I want to go up in that game, I'm going to just map out up on the cursor, as you can see. And if I go to D-pad down, just go to the cursor on the virtual keyboard, and same for left. So you need to find out the actual keys required for each game to map it out so your controller recognizes the mappings. So it really is that simple. And of course, once you've done this, just make sure to go right to the bottom of pads to keyboard configuration and save it. Okay, so before I start today's ZINC in Retrobat setup guide, if you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation content that I upload almost every day nowadays. So we're looking at ZINC today, and for a while now, people's been asking me how to set this up, and to be honest with you, I wasn't sure what ZINC was until this came to my attention. So I've looked into it, and the issue people's getting out there very commonly is you're going to open up a game within Retrobat, and it's going to bounce back and you're going to get an error. There's no emulator installed. So we found a solution around this. So what we're going to do first is just head into Retrobat. Okay, so once you're inside Retrobat, we're going to go to the Retrobat icon, and this is where you can download all your standalone emulators. So right at the bottom, you're going to find ZINC. If you just download, it will do that automatically. And install emulator, so yes. And that's going to bring up ZINC Frontend 2.2, but don't worry about this, we can just back out. Now what we're going to do next is just exit out of Retrobat. Okay, so once we've got that emulator installed inside of Retrobat, we're going to go back to the Retrobat shortcut, right click on it, open file location, and we're going to go to my favourite place, BAT GUI, that's BAT Graphical User Interface.exe. We're going to go to System List and drop down System at the top. Now, like I always say, if you can't see this, check out my fully comprehensive Retrobat setup guide. It's quite likely you're missing some files during the initial installation of Retrobat. If you do see this, we can drag right down and you're going to go to ZINC. And under extensions, we can see that our games need to be in .zip file extension. Now we got no RetroArch libretto cores to be supporting your games for ZINC. So that's why we've had to download the ZINC emulator in Retrobat. So we're going to close out of here, and what we're going to do next is actually go into the ROMs folder in the Retrobat directory, and if we scroll right down to the bottom, we're going to find ZINC. Open up ZINC. Now let me talk to you about games. Now the reason it bounces back through Retrobat saying there's no emulator installed is quite likely that you don't actually have BIOS files for your game. So in my new folder, and as a little test, what I've done is got Street Fighter X 2 Plus. And as we can see, the zipped folder just here, this is a game itself. And this particular game requires 2 BIOS files to run. So CPZN1 .zip and CPZN2.zip. Now, without BIOS files with your ZINC games, they're not going to run, and that's why Retrobat is booting you back into Retrobat. They're not working. So what we're going to do is just drag these 3 folders, or zip folders, into the ROM ZINC directory. Now we've done that, what we're going to do is go back into Retrobat. So once we're inside Retrobat, we're going to just scroll until we find ZINC, and here it is. So here's our game. So like I always say, grab some artwork in the preview video. So to do that, go into main menu by pressing start on your controller, and we're going to go down to scraper and just go to scrape now. And if you're unsure how to use Scraper, check out again my full comprehensive setup guide for Retrobat. Okay, so scrape and finish, update game list. So start, main menu, game settings, update game list, and yes. Okay, so we've got the cover art now for the game, where we got a preview video. So if you go to view options first, just go down to advanced system options. Now the problem is, I find with ZINC, is that it runs really well, but you're going to have issues with your controller. ZINC front end itself that we downloaded is known to have some issues with controls on particular games. So there is a way around this, but to be honest, I think it's going to be worth the second method of playing ZINC games. But anyways, inside this menu, if you do want to take your chances and look at setting up a controller for ZINC emulator, then under general settings you're going to find controller configuration method. Now you've got a selection here to use, and trust me, I've tried everything for this Street Fighter game and it's not working. Or to repeat myself, it is working, but my D-pad doesn't work whatsoever. So if we come out of here, we've also got controls and control scheme. Again, just like the previous controller options, I've literally tried everything in combinations as well, including Street Fighter, and it doesn't work. So also got use D-pad. So what I'm going to do now is actually boot up the game so you can see it works, and we can reach a certain point, but D-pad isn't working. Okay, so just exit out of there. Like I said, for sure it works, and I'm quite sure there is particular games which will work fine with a controller. So it's worth experimenting if you really want to use the ZINC emulator. But I'm going to suggest using Mame. Now the reason Mame is better is that it's going to support these games and also give us a better video quality of picture too. So if we exit out of Retrobat, all we need to be doing to do this is go back into the Retrobat directory, open file location, and that game, along with its BIOS zip files, what we're going to do is just highlight and copy 3 of those files. Now, like I say, some ZINC games will maybe have just one BIOS zip to accompany the actual game, but in this case, this one needs 2. So you can look up which you need online. And what we're going to do then with these is go into the main folder in ROMs. Now what I'm going to do is just go into the main folder, and what I've done is pasted those games I've just got from the ZINC folder. So with those in place, we're going to open up Retrobat again. Okay, so once we open up Retrobat again, we're now going to find Mame. If we go inside of Mame, we can then download the artwork in the preview video by using the scraper method. But the beauty is with Mame is that we got no issues with controllers. D-pad works fine, everything works fine. If I open up the game now,
Round 1, fight!
as we can see, that's working brilliant. There's nothing wrong with the controllers whatsoever. It does look a little bit bad though, you know, it's a very old game, and what we can do is actually make this look really cool. So to do this, what we're going to do is just drop down to updates and downloads, and if we go to the bezel project, you should find Mame here. If you've not downloaded this, download Mame. And what we're going to do next, once you've downloaded this, is just go back into view options, advanced system options, under shader set, I'm going to put this to curvature to give it a very old school CRT look. Under decorations, we're going to put the bezel project on, which you've just downloaded. Now under game aspect ratio, if you're using bezels or decorations, the best way to do this is by keeping it on auto, which automatically detects 4:3. If you go to a full size screen or 16:9, then a lot of your image is going to be cut out. So just keep this to auto or just select 4:3. Now the next thing we're going to do to clear up this game with all its polygons everywhere is if we drop down the integer scaling, just make sure this one's either on auto or on. Vertical sync, we're going to put this one to yes. That just kills any screen tear that we might see in the games. Now the beauty with using Mame is under internal resolution we can actually bump this up to 4K, providing you've got an adequate computer to be doing this. Now under visual rendering, video filters, we can add scan lines, anything really there, just experiment with those. I'm going to leave it to auto. And smooth games, we're going to smooth this one out by selecting auto or on. Now let me just say, if we go to drivers, video, if you find games which are supposedly supposed to boot and be playable, if they're giving you a black screen or whatever, then video, you need to be selecting another backend driver here. Something like Vulkan will suffice, but OpenGL works fine for me. Now with those video settings put in place, let's check out Street Fighter again.
Bronca. Round one, fight!
And as we can see, that looks pretty awesome. Now, if we go back into ZINC, we're going to compare the video settings. So just scroll over to find ZINC. Now, if we go to view options within the ZINC emulator, go down to advanced system options. As you can see, you're very limited to video options you got here. We can't even upscale internally to 4K. So for that reason alone, as well as configuration problems with controllers being set up, then by far I seriously recommend you use Mame for this. Okay, before I start today's Retrobat and NAMCO System 246 and 256 setup, guys, just make sure to hit notifications, subscribe and like if you like what you see today. Helps my channel out a great deal, plus it gets you retro emulation content just like this one today. And let me just remind you also that I've got an entire playlist of over 100 different Retrobat setup guides at this point. So we're looking at NAMCO 246 and 256 today. Let me tell you, this isn't a very simple system for Retrobat to set up. Games don't particularly work too well, although some might, but we're going to get you there. So what we need to do first is just head up to the Retrobat shortcut, right click on it, open file location, back GUI, system list, and under MU Station system file, just make sure this one is actually on ES_systems. Now under system, we're going to scroll down until we find NAMCO. Let me just remind you, if you don't see this drop down list like many people say, I do have a fully comprehensive setup guide to get you running with this so you can actually see it. You're missing a couple of files more than likely. So here's NAMCO 2x6. Okay, now under extensions it just says .zip, and I think that's debatable. It's yeah, there's a bit more to it in this, but we're going to get there. Under cores libretro, this is your RetroArch core section. We don't have any RetroArch cores for this particular system. So once we're inside Retrobat, we do need to download an emulator named Play. Now the issue is with Play is that it's not the greatest emulator. In fact, I covered Play yesterday for PlayStation 2 and the results were debatable. So what we're going to do then with this little help we got just here is do what I did, and we're going to really go for this. Yesterday when I was researching, there was no information for this, how to set this up, so I've kind of done this myself and it does work. So what we're going to do then, we're going to look at game files first. Now with Bat GUI, it's just advised us that we need .zips. Now that's partially true. What it doesn't say is that we also need .chd files to go alongside those .zips. So for example, we got .zip just here, and inside .zip we got lots of different files. So we got these .ic002s, and you know, there's a few folders in some of these games, but this is generally the content inside of the .zip files. It kind of works a little bit like particular main games where you're going to need the sample files to go alongside the main .zip games. So what we need to do is also have an accompanying .chd file to go with the actual zip itself. Now what we need to do with the .chd file is put this into a folder. So if we right click on the desktop, new, folder. Now I'm going to call this one Tekken 4, and there's a little bit more to it in this, so it's not this simple. So we got Tekken 4 just here, and I'm going to drag that .chd inside of there. So right now then for Tekken 4, we got Tekken4.zip with those old files inside it, and we've also got our .chd inside of the Tekken 4 folder. Right, so inside of your Retrobat directory, we're going to go down to ROMs. And we're going to find NAMCO just here. And here it is, NAMCO 2x6. And we're going to drop both of those inside of there for now. Now there's more to it in this, like I'm saying, but first of all, we do need to open up Retrobat. Okay, so if you've done this right, you're going to see NAMCO system 246.256 in Retrobat. Now what we're going to do is just go into that folder, and here's my game Tekken 4. If I open this up, so we need to download the Play emulator like I've said, so we're going to install that by pressing yes. Okay, and as you can see and you can hear, it's extremely laggy, and I'm afraid this is kind of the case with several of the games I've tested out for this setup guide, is that they will play, only the quality is really bad, as the Play emulator that we downloaded is bad. Unfortunately, Play is also a PlayStation 2 emulator, and yes, we got PCSX2, but PCSX2 isn't supporting NAMCO system 246.256 games. So what we're going to do is just exit out of Retrobat for now. So main menu, and quit. So once we close out a Retrobat, what we're going to do, we're going to go back into the Retrobat directory. So shortcut again, right click, open file location. This time we're going to head down into the emulators folder, and in emulators you're going to find play. Just scroll down a touch and here's play. Now because we've downloaded the play emulator using Retrobat, we've now got some folders in here and some files. Now what we need to look for is the arcade depths. Now under here is all the files for the games which this system supports. So it's not all of the games to my knowledge, but this is the games that are supported right now, as of now recording this video. So for example, my Tekken game is listed just here. And if we open this up using Notepad, it will tell us here what the ID and the name of the game is called. So we got other odd titles here for some of the games. And for another example, in my games folder, I have got a couple more games. Now one of these is Ridge Racer. Now if I drop a .zip and a .folder containing my .chd into the Retrobat NAMCO folder just titled Ridge Racer, it's not going to work. So what we need to do is refer to this arcade depths folder, and we got to search for Ridge Racer in here, and here it is, rrvac.arcadedef. If we open this up, we got Ridge Racer. So we need to ensure that the folder we create for Ridge Racer is titled exactly the same as what this says just here, so rrvac. Okay, so if I go back to that games folder, you'll notice that I've created a rrvac folder with the .chd inside, and I've also got the accompanying .zip to go with it. Like Tekken 4, it's got the odd files in there, the .ic files. So you're also going to find in some cases, or I have at least, is that by just dropping your games, the .zip and the folder into your Retrobat ROMs NAMCO folder, they're not going to show up. Or like I say, at least for me, some of these haven't on testing for this setup guide. So in that case, what we need to do is go to Play Data Files, Arcade ROMs, and what we're going to do is just drop the .zip and folder containing that .chd inside of that arcade ROMs folder, and I'm going to make a copy of these, and I'm also going to paste these into my Retrobat ROMs folder and back into that NAMCO folder. So like I say, in case you don't see your game show up just by dropping them into your Retrobat ROMs NAMCO folder, just make sure they're in that arcade ROMs folder as well, the same as what I'm about to paste in here. And there they are. So like I've been saying, it's not as straightforward as some other systems, and I've had to play this by constantly testing out what works, what doesn't work. The Retrobat wiki doesn't really contain a great deal of information on getting NAMCO set up. So what we're going to do is open up Retrobat once more. Okay, and as we can see, we've now got Ridge Racer V arcade game. Now before we open up this one, let's just go to view options by pressing select on controller, advanced system options. Now as we know, on a lot of Retrobat systems we're going to get the choice for emulators at the top just here, but we don't have this for NAMCO. As we know, we just got Play supporting this, or supposedly supporting this. Now under decorations, we do have some decorations here to apply to it. Because it's not running through RetroArch, we don't have a fancy specific decoration for it. To my knowledge, a lot of these games for NAMCO systems are in 4:3 ratio, so if you want to apply one of these decorations just here, go for it. Now internal resolution, this apparently goes up to 16K, but now testing Play emulator in yesterday's PlayStation 2 setup guide I did using Play emulator, it barely runs even at native 480p, but the potential is there in future updates for Play and of course future updates for Retrobat itself. So I suggest just leaving this to auto for now. Smooth games, we can take away pixelation in our games, but literally just by leaving this to auto, that's going to select on for us anyway. Under video, we got forceful screen mode and we got widescreen. And if we go to emulation, we can choose a language. Now, the games I have tested for this setup guide tend to be in English just by leaving this to auto. And under drivers, by auto is going to select OpenGL. Now, if you've got games which are supposed to boot but they don't, try changing that over to Vulkan. And these are called back-end drivers. I'm going to leave this to auto for now. And let's just download some artwork for these games. So, main menu, scraper, and I'm going to just go to scrape now. Okay, finished. Update game list to apply changes. So scroll back up the game settings in main menu, update game list, really update game list, press yes. Okay, here we go. So let's open up Ridge Racer for now. Now bear in mind, I find that most of the games don't work with controller. Now we do have some information how to actually set up our controllers, which I'm going to get onto in a minute. Let's open up Ridge Racer for now. So just use your hotkeys to do that. In my case, I'm pressing start and select together, and that's going to bring us back to Retrobat. Let's go to quit. Now what I'm going to do is just once again go to the Retrobat directory, right click on it, open file location, and we're going to go back down to emulators, and we're going to find that play folder again. If we go inside the play, if we go into the play emulator itself from here, as we have no controller settings once we're inside Retrobat, we're going to go to play.exe. Now ignore everything you see just here. What we're going to do is go to options, controller manager. Now technically this is where we get to configure our controller. Now sadly, I can't configure my controller. I think at some point during the setup guide process when I was researching this and trying things out for myself, I got Coin to work once. But this is what you see, and what I recommend doing is just adding a profile to this. So just go to add and type in a profile name, so just Jamie in my case, OK on this. Now what we're going to do is just map out our controllers. So for example, on analog left, I'm going to double left click on this. And then on my Xbox controller, I'm going to just shift my analog left stick to the left. And then we're going to go to analog right and do the same again on your right analog stick. And D-pad up. And like it says, you need to hold this for a few seconds for it to assign. And we're going to go to down. And left. And literally follow this right till you get to the bottom. Obviously, if you're using a Xbox controller and you're not familiar with PlayStation buttons, then for Xbox, square is going to be your X button. triangle is going to be the Y button, circle is going to be your B button, and cross is going to be your A button. Now let me just say in advance that apparently we can access a test menu similar to other arcade systems I've covered, which in order to set up a particular game by pressing these combination of buttons, we can access the test menu to configure controllers. I can't get this working, and I have tried and I tried and I tried. If you can get this working, please drop it in the comments for other people to see what you've done. Okay, and finally we've got R3. Now just to remember that L3 and R3 are your analog sticks pressed down. Okay, so we've now done this. What we're going to do is just go to apply. Okay, so we can do this just fine, but once we've done this, whilst we're Retrobat, your controller still isn't going to work. So what I'm going to do is suggest what it does say on the Retrobat wiki, and by going to play data files, we can go to input profiles, and you'll see that that joystick, or rather controller configuration that I've just mapped out, is now created a .xml file. If we open this up with Notepad, we can see that every input that I've just inputted into the controller mapping is listed here. So all good and well. So what we're going to do is open up Retrobat again. Okay, back into NAMCO. Now, because we've configured controllers, now technically you would assume this will work. So what I'm going to do is open up Ridge Racer V now. And now, like I say, technically I should be able to play this game, but we're going to see. And we're going to try Tekken 4 this time. And as we can see, absolute garbage, totally unplayable, something like 2 frames per second. Okay, so we're on the Retrobat wiki for NAMCO, as we can see. So if we look at the controls section just here in the Retrobat wiki, it's saying that we can create our very own .xml input for each game. But each one of these .xml profiles needs to be named exactly like the game name. So what we're going to do, we're going to head back into the Retrobat shortcut and we're going to actually test this out. So Retrobat, open file location, and we're going to go back down to emulators and we're going to go back to the play folder, and we need to make sure then that these .xml control profiles are named exactly how the game files are themselves. So to test this, what we're going to do is go back into play data files, arcade ROMs, and what I'm going to do here is just right click on the .zip on Ridge Racer, rename, and I'm going to make a copy of that game title. Now if I come back out and I go into input profiles, under just Jamie here, which is how I configured my controllers just now in play, I'm going to rename this to that Ridge Racer name. Now technically, if we open up Ridge Racer, this should respond to it. So I'm also going to take away default.xml and just leave this be. So let's open up Retrobat again and try out Ridge Racer with that XML input profile. Okay, so NAMCO and Ridge Racer. And I'm still getting no input, so let's just press escape again. Okay, before I start today's setup guys for the awesome Sega STV arcade system, make sure to hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation content, just like this one you're watching today. So yes, we're looking at the Sega STV today, and this is a very awesome arcade system. So what we're going to do first is go to the Retrobat shortcut, right click on it and just go to open file location, back GUI. We need to establish which type of game extensions Sega STV requires, and we also need to find out what's supporting this once we open it up in Retrobat. So we're going to go to system list, and I'm going to just drop this down to ES systems, and if I then go to system, I'll see a drop down box just here, and this just tells us our different systems within Retrobat, what Retrobat supports. And let me just remind you, right just here, I'm using the latest beta, which is Stable 6 Beta version 2, and you can download that in just like the regular current version of Retrobat, which is Stable version 5. It's absolutely free and you can grab it from their website. Let me just recommend that obviously beta means it's still in testing, so if you want to check out Sega STV through Retrobat, maybe just make a portable device and set it up for the latest beta 2 Retrobat. But anyways, we're going to drop down here and we're going to find Sega STV, and here it is. And once we're in here, we're going to find at the bottom here under extensions.zip. So all of our Sega STV games need to be in .zip file extension, which I'm going to show you in a second. and we'll find under Cores Lib Retro, it's going to be supported by the almost Sega Saturn core, which is Chronos or Cronus. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. So that's what we need. And if we close this down and close back GUI down, we do need a BIOS file for this. So the BIOS file you do need for this is stvbios.zip. You don't need to extract this one, you just need it in that .zip file extension, and that's simply going to go into our BIOS folder. So let's just drag and drop that one into there for now. And if we come back out and just go down into the ROMs folder, we're going to find in here Sega STV. So if we just scroll down again until we get to Sega STV, and here it is just beneath Sega CD. Okay, so I've got some games to go in this one, and they're in my STV folder, so I'm going to just drag and drop my Sega STV games inside of that ROM Sega STV folder, and that's all there is to it. So we're pretty much ready to open up Retrobat now. So let's just double left click on the Retrobat icon or shortcut. Okay, so first thing you're going to notice actually is this theme I'm using, and you can get this theme very easily by going to main menu, and if you just scroll down to updates and downloads, themes, you're going to find it under here. And this particular theme I found today is specifically, by the seams of it, for version 6. And here it is. And this particular theme I'm using is called Dark Games, as you can see just here. So to my knowledge, this is quite a brand new theme which has just been uploaded into the Retrobat servers. So that's the theme I'm using. But we're going to look at Sega STV, and they're going to appear under Arcade, or it might come up as Sega STV. Let me show you what I mean. If I go back to main menu and user interface settings, so if I change the theme set to something very basic like Carbon Master, you'll then find Sega STV is actually got its own icon. Yet if I go back to main menu again and switch this over using user interface settings back to Dark Games, there we go. So I quite like this theme, I think it's pretty funky. So what I'm going to do is just go into the Arcade logo or icon, and I'm going to just scrape some artwork for now. So main menu, I'm going to go down to Scraper, and I'm just going to go down to Systems Included and just hit STV and press back and scrape now. Okay, so scrape and finish, update game list to apply changes. So let's go to main menu by pressing start, game settings, update game list, and just press yes. And here we go. Okay, let me just take this opportunity just to say to you, if you're using a theme and you like it, but you don't particularly like the way the game lists look, if you go into main menu by pressing start, user interface settings, go to theme configuration, and you'll find game list view style. Now this one is currently on grid. If I go to something like game carousel and come back out, you can then change how your games appear. So it looks pretty cool, this one. So I'm going to leave it for this for now. And what I'm going to do is just show you how we can actually make the games look different. So rather than so much pixelation, we can blur things out. So just simply press the select button whilst you're in your game menu. In this case, we're in Sega STV. And what we're going to do is just drop down to advanced system options. Now, normally on most Retrobat systems in the game folders, you'll find emulators at the top. but as we've already established, we don't have many options for this. We've literally got the RetroArch Kronos core to use with this, so you're not going to see emulators listed at the top, but we still have video settings to play with. So if I go to shader set, we can make this look different. For example, if I just go down to the bottom, we can add different shaders to this. So shaders is almost applying filters, as it were. So we can add scan lines to this. We can give it a retro look, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And if we come back out, decorations. So normally under decorations, this is going to take away those black bars on the sides of the screen that you'll often see in your old retro games. And they're there because old retro games were for 4:3 aspect ratio. Now under decorations, normally we have a decoration for each system, but this one doesn't. So instead of having the black bars on the sides, we can use one of these which comes with Retrobat. So for example, if I was to use Arcade 1980s, rather than having those black bars on the side of the screen, we're then going to see something 1980s style. So we're also going to go to game aspect ratio. Now under here, if you're using a decoration like I've just applied, just make sure that game aspect ratio is on auto, which is automatically going to select the next option down, which is 4:3. If you was to put this on, say, full or a core provided, then all of your gameplay image is going to be pretty much chopped up or just gone away by that decoration that we're going to use. So we're going to put this on auto. Integer scaling. This by auto means that this is also on by default, and this is just going to make things look better, so just leave that on auto. Vertical sync, drop this one to yes. What vertical sync does is takes away screen tear. So say you're playing a 3D game, you'll often see very slight gradual lines up and down your screen appear. So by putting this option to yes, that's going to take away that. Now we got internal resolution. Now technically this RetroArch core can go up to 8K, which I wouldn't recommend. It will likely lag and it just probably wouldn't look right, but you can try it and experiment and prove me wrong maybe. For this, rather than going for say 480p, we can upgrade the resolution to say 720p or even 1080p, and that's going to give us a better image anyways. So I'm going to go to 720p. And if we go down to visual rendering, we got lots of different options here to play around with how the games look. So under video filters, we got lots of different options there, such as scan lines to apply. And whilst we're in advanced system options, let me just remind you, should you get a game which doesn't boot up, it just gives you a black screen, this is very simple. If you just go to the bottom where it says drivers, and in video, it's going to be on auto by default, which is going to pick up OpenGL. Now, particular games in Sega STV using this RetroArch core might require a different video backend. For example, the game which I'm about to pop on for you, which is Astra Superstars, requires Vulkan, or it does in my case. If I open this with OpenGL, it's going to give me a black screen. So if I put this one to Vulkan and boot up the game, and that works just perfectly with the Vulkan driver applied to there. So now that you can see how this is supposed to look, what we can do now is look at the video settings. So view options by pressing select, advanced system options. Now this time what I'm going to do is actually attempt to make this into full screen. So what I'm going to do is go to decorations and I'm going to turn this to none. Game aspect ratio, I'm going to go right to the bottom on this and select full. And under shader set, I'm going to put this one on to enhanced. And if we go down to visual rendering, video filters, I'm also going to apply upscale 1.5x. Smooth games by linear filtering, I'm going to just leave this to on or auto, either way it's going to turn it on. And if I come back out, If we open up the game again, so as you can see, we now got a full screen by applying those settings, and it's not so pixelated. But if you fancy your chances and you think your computer can handle it, we can just make this look even better. So just go down internal resolution, and you can attempt to put this at 8K, but like I say a minute ago, it's likely it's going to lag. But let's go to 1080p, and I'm going to open up this game for the final time. Okay, so if you're new to my channel, press notifications and subscribe and like if you like what you see today. And also be sure to check out my entire playlist for Retrobat setups. I've got a lot in there at this point. And I also cover different front-end systems you might be interested in, such as RetroArch, Launchbox, Batacera, and beyond. I even cover a Raspberry Pi nowadays. But for this setup guide today, as we know, we're looking at Future Pinball, or often known as F-Pinball in the Retrobat community. So let's first open up Retrobat itself. So what we're going to do is just go into Retrobat once we're in Retrobat, and from here, we just need to scroll down to find Future Pinball, and there you go. So let's just press on that one as we're going to download this one. And we need to install it like it's advising, so just press yes on this part. Downloading, installing. And there we go, so everything's downloaded and now installed. So let's just close out of here. Let's shut down Retrobat. So main menu, I'm pressing start on my PS3 controller and just go down to quit. Now, what I'm going to suggest first is obviously grabbing some pinball games. So these are going to be in a .fpt file extension. And if I actually go back to Retrobat, right click on the shortcut, open file location, back GUI. And if we go to system list, and just drop down the top here, system. Now, for those of you who don't see this long list of systems just here, check out my fully comprehensive guide on getting Retrobat set up, because there's a good chance you haven't installed a couple of prerequisite files to get Retrobat working as it should be. But for those who can see this, we're going to scroll this down. And F-Pinball is just here, so just click on there. So the extensions for F-Pinball games are going to be .fpt, which is the file extensions I've got today. You've got .7z or .7z, and that's going to be obviously .7zip, .zip, .rar. Now, personally, I find the .fpt file extensions work the best with this. And if we just look over here, Course Libretto. Now, this is empty because there are no RetroArch Libretto cores for this. It's strictly just the Future Pinball or F-Pinball emulator that we just downloaded a minute ago. So let's close out of here and close out of back GUI. And what I'm going to do is just go down to ROMs within the Retrobat directory. And under ROMs, you're going to find F-Pinball. Now, this is going to be empty. So what I'm going to do is just open up my games, or rather tables. And here we go. So we got .fpts all the way down. These are pretty much community made. And one of the most famous creators of these tables goes by the name of Slam Tilt. But the trouble is with Slam Tilt tables, he seems to, or she seems to have a history of uploading things and then kind of closing things down for some reason. So you will find these tables and you can download them, but it really is just a case of Google searching or whatever search engine you're going to be using and just type in Slam Tilt. And Tilt is spelled T and then digit 1LT. And you will find these tables, but it's just a case of searching, and they're absolutely free. So what I'm going to do for now is just drag my tables in and drag those into the Retrobat ROMs F Pinball folder. Now, I've got several here, and a couple of these are from some of my favorite films, Nightmare on Elm Street, Back to the Future. And I'm going to show you a variation of how simple some of these look to Slam Tilt tables, which are a bit more complex, but I'm going to show you that in a minute. So let's close this down and open up Retrobat. So once we're inside Retrobat, we now got Future Pinball, as you can see. And let's just open this one up. And here's all my tables that I just dragged into the ROMs F Pinball folder inside the Retrobat directory. And it's unlikely if we scrape artwork for these, because the names on these haven't been edited, it's going to be very rare to get artwork for the way these are spelt at the moment. But we're going to try. So main menu, scraper, and scrape now. So just let that do a spin. But like I say, because these naming conventions are a bit all over the place with numbers on and physics adjustments, it's unlikely things are going to properly scrape. Having said that, as you can see, I've just actually managed to scrape this Star Wars one, which is quite a surprise. So main menu, game settings, update game list, and yes. So we got Star Wars artwork, but I'm going to edit these in a minute and hopefully get some more artwork. So we're going to start off on Nightmare on Elm Street. So I'm going to run this with all default settings. So advanced system options and emulator, just leave this one to auto. And game aspect ratio, everything's to auto like you see, but I'm also going to show you how to make these games in vertical mode in a minute. But let's check out Nightmare on Elm Street first, and this is the Ultimate 1.6 edition. And you'll get this little pop-up saying requires development mode. Just forget about that, it will run fine.
Welcome to my world, bitch.
So very cool pinball table with this one. You've even got the school bus from part 2, which it's given me a bit of a fetish about American school buses, I think, since watching that film as a kid, but that's another story. So, like I say, what we're going to do now is take a look at those settings again, and I'm going to open up a different game whilst doing this. So, for those of you who wants to do this in a vertical mode rather than horizontal standard, we can actually make the table or make the screen sort of sideways. So to do this, all we need to do is go to view options again, advanced system options. And if I go down to tape mode and put this one to yes, Let's just back out of there. This time I'm going to open up, say, Back to the Future. Now prepare to wobble your head sideways to see this one.
It's Saturday morning, October 26, 1985, 1:18 a.m.
So when you get the idea with that, I can keep my head on one side to play that. But if you want to do that, that's how you do it. Now, what I'm doing to control these games is I'm using my PlayStation 3 controller, and to insert coin, I'm just pressing select. And to start the game, I'm pressing start. And by pressing L1 and R1 on my PS3 controller, that's controlling the flippers on each side. And by pressing X on my controller, I'm pushing power into that pinball mechanism to make it go onto the pinball table. And you can actually use your keyboards too if you prefer kind of playing with buttons on your keyboards rather than a controller. It might feel a little bit better for some people. What I'm going to do next then is we still need artwork for these games. So if we come out of Retrobat, so main menu and quit, just edit some of these, and some of these might grab some artwork, some might not. So for example, Alien, I'm going to just right click on it, show more options, rename, and I'm going to take away the 1.1, and I'm also going to take away that 10 underscore. So I think that's going to give us more of a chance to scrape some artwork for that one. Back to the Future again, just take away 1.15. Nightmare on Elm Street, rename, and I'm going to just keep this one called Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, of course, Nightmare on Elm Street is actually a Nightmare on Elm Street, so if this one doesn't scrape, then there's a good chance we just put A on the end or on the front of that one. Terminator Genesis, actually Genesis. I'm going to just take away this and leave here. And let's open this up again. I'm also going to show you some of the tables made by the community, which are very basic in comparison to the slam tilt tables, which are the ones I recommend. They're the most complex and are the best looking. So let's open up Retrobat again. So as you can see, these names, they're shortened now because I've just deleted some of the possibly irrelevant bits and pieces from the names. So let's try scraping some artwork again. Now these are a bit easier for the system to understand. And there we go. Just by editing those names, we've actually managed to get a couple more artworks for these games. So let's go to game settings, update game list. Yes. So obviously things like Terminator Genesis, I don't actually think that Genesis is spelled correctly. So there's a good chance that's why that one out straight. But anyways, I'm going to show you a more basic pinball table, which is Alien. And just bear in mind, this isn't by Slam Tilt. So it is very basic in comparison to what you've already seen.
Right now.
So as you can see, Alien is very basic, and I forgot to mention just now, but if you actually press, or rather if I press circle on my PS3 controller, I can actually change the view of the pinball table. So I'm going to just take a look now at Star Wars, and obviously this one is by Slam Tilt. So this one's going to be a highly quality, really polished table. So again, just go to advanced system options, and if you do put this into vertical mode, then just remember to put this one back to auto, otherwise you're going to constantly have your head twisted to one side, and that's no good. And just to let you know, if we go to preset, leave this one to auto. If you go down to minimum or medium, some of the visuals are going to start going. So leave this to max, and that's going to look the best. And just to let you know, we've also got game aspect ratio, but I do recommend leaving this one to 16:9. So let's open up Star Wars Death Star Assault.
Good luck.
All wings report in.
Red 5 standing by.
R2, how are things going topside?
Red 10 standing by. We meet again at last.
So there we go, and that's Star Wars Death Star Assault. And finally, I'm going to just show you Terminator Genesis. I've not actually played this table myself, but so far my favourite's Nightmare on Elm Street, but I might be a little bit biased with that one. So yeah, I think that's enough for the Terminator Genesis one. That's pretty shabby, shoddy, whatever. And just to let you know that you can actually create your own pinball tables in that future pinball emulator. So let's just main menu, quit. And if you fancy doing this, it's recommended that you actually download Future Pinball by itself. Just go to the Future Pinball website. But to give you a rough idea of creating your own pinball tables, if I just take you into Future Pinball, which is now installed into the emulators folder in Retrobat, F Pinball, now we got futurepinball.exe. If we open this one up, but like I say, if you do want to create your own tables, then just download it separately. Just go to the Future Pinball website. But this is pretty much an editor, and you can create your own tables here. But that's a different setup guide, and I'm sure there's other setup guides around if you wanted to do that today, for example, but it can be done. Okay, so I've got a brand new setup guide today for a system in Retrobat called Cave, and this mysterious Cave folder you might have scrolled past is actually worth your while looking. This is Cave Interactive, and it was a Japanese video game company founded in 1994, and they're actually known for bullet hell shoot 'em ups. So if you're into those type of games and some fighters, this video is definitely going to be for you. And really, this is going to to be a showcase of what Cave has to offer. A lot of people out there, they're asking for Mame setups, and I've yet to do that yet, but we're going to get there with Mame. But for the time being, we're specifically looking at Cave, and like I say, shoot 'em up fans out there are really going to enjoy this one, plus the showcase I'm going to do for this. So check this one out. Okay, so if you're new to my channel, make sure subscribe, hit notifications and like. It will get you up-to-date Retrobat content as I release it. I also cover a wide range of other emulation platforms and front-end systems such as Launchbox, Batacera, RetroArch, and so on. So what we're looking at today is Cave, and I realise that I'm going through each one of these Retrobat setups, which Retrobat caters for. And one of them I've come across, which I know people's going to like, is Cave. So generally in my videos, I do say go to Bat GUI, and I'm going to just briefly show you how to do this. Just right click on your shortcut, open file location, and just open up Bat GUI, and you can go from systems from there. But in this case today, this one really is a simple setup, guys. It really is. So instead of doing that, I'm going to bypass it, go to ROMs. And in ROMs, you're going to find Cave. And you would have scrolled past this and you probably haven't thought much of it. But really, all we're looking for this is .zips. So like I say, it really is that simple for this one. So we got cave.zips, that's your file extension. And we're going to just drag and drop those into your Retrobat ROMs Cave. And next up, we're going to just hit Retrobat and let's go into this. Okay, so we got Cave up here, and what we're going to do is just firstly grab some artwork for this. So let's go inside, and here's my game. So I've got several of these, and like I said, this is going to be more of a showcase to show you what Cave has to offer. So let's grab some artwork to make these a little bit more attractive. And main menu by pressing start on my controller, scraper, and from here I'm going to just go to scrape now. And this is going to take a little while. I've got 24 of these zip files. Okay, so once scraping's finished, we're going to update game list to apply changes. So game settings, update game list, and yes. Okay, so we got our artwork in preview videos, and you're going to notice that if you're going to be playing some Cave games, not all games are going to run perfectly on this, and you could spend night and day trying to perfect these. So if we go to view options, I'm pressing select on my controller, just go to advanced system options, and under emulator, we'll see a host of RetroArch libretto cores, and these are mainly Mame. So let's just remind ourselves that Cave was actually set out to be an arcade system back in the mid-90s. So some of these are going to work fine just by selecting auto, and others you might get better luck and success using a different core for this. So I'm going to leave the first one onto auto, and I'm going to just leave everything else to auto here. To check out Eric Alec.
We have a crisis situation. Red alert, red alert. Stinger is trapped. That rescue helicopter recovered Stinger.
What the heck?
No show in progress. Continue upgrade.
Prepare for launch.
Show them what you've got.
Radar contact. Both at 2 o'clock, 25 miles, 1,800 knots exposure.
Time is running out. Deploying enemy immediately.
Roger.
Operations are completing stage 1.
So as you can see, Ergolet is a very cool shoot 'em up indeed. Next up, we got Death Smiles. Now, I find Death Smiles works best with the core, which is Libretto Mame 2016. I find the other cores either won't load this one or it will just crash. So select Mame 2016 if you're planning on playing Death Smiles, and let's boot this one up. Get you set up with NAOMI then. So in this setup guide, I'm going to show you how to get NAOMI 1 and 2 up and running with Retrobat. So first things first, what I always recommend you do is go to Bat GUI to see what file extensions it is that Retrobat takes. So if you don't have Bat GUI on your desktop like I do, which I recommend you doing, if you just go to your Retrobat shortcut, right click on it and go to Open File Location, under here, you'll find Bat GUI, and this is one of the most useful tools Retrobat has to offer. If you go under System List and System at the top here, if we just scroll down until we find NAOMI, it will tell us under Extensions which file extension types NAOMI 1 takes for Retrobat. So as we can see, we got .bin, .dat, .zip, etc. And then we can scroll down to NAOMI 2, and for NAOMI 2, it's going to take .zip and .7zip, which is 7Z or Z. So let's close this down. And let's get straight into this. So before I actually start with this setup guide, can I just ask you hit notifications and also, of course, subscribe if you like this video. And also be sure to check out my other Retrobat tutorials. I got many at this point. So let's actually take a look at the BIOS files you're going to need. So this is, of course, BIOS files you need for both systems, as Sega NAOMI 1 and Sega NAOMI 2. So we got a NAOMI.zip, NAOMI_boot.bin, and a NAOMI2.zip. So what I'm going to do is go into my Retrobat directory. Again, right click on the shortcut, open file location. And if I go to the BIOS folder, I'm going to just drag and drop these 3 BIOS files inside of my BIOS folder for Retrobat. So those are now in place. Now, if I come back out of here and just go down to ROMs, under ROMs, I'm going to find 2 folders, one named NAOMI and the other one's named NAOMI 2. So under NAOMI, I've got a NAOMI 1 game just here. Now, just bear in mind, if you can't get some of your games working, then some of these NAOMI games are going to require a CHD, that's a .chd file extension, and its accompanying .zip file. So just be sure that some games are going to require 2 files for a game to run. So for this game, this is 18 Wheeler, I'm going to just drag this .zip into my NAOMI folder. And let's get this up and running first. So if I just close that here and head into Retrobat. And of course, I got my PlayStation 3 controller. And there we go. So we got NAOMI now appeared, games 1. If I just enter into this, and first thing I'm going to do is just make this look a bit more fancy. So if I go into main menu, scraper, and of course scraper settings to however you prefer them to be. Just going to download a bezel actually whilst we're there. Back and scrape now. Hopefully this is going to get us some cover art. So let's just restart this, update game lists. And there we go. Okay, so now we got our artwork. I'm going to just go into view options. I'm pressing select on my controller to do this. And then advanced system options. If I go to the bottom under emulation, the 2 options you need to change for this to get you a really smooth experience for playing NAOMI, on NAOMI 1 that is. If you go to service mode, press yes. And under free play, also press yes. Let's just go into this game and press yes. And there we go, we now have our game up and running. Now, of course, I got the bezel attached for this, but we can also disable it if that's what you prefer.
Please select a truck. Asphalt Cowboy. Ready, go!
Good morning, New York. 1110 KRW Super Express Truckers Network. Here is our first song.
Okay, so let's exit out of that, and I'm going to show you some more options. If we go back to view options, advanced system options, under here, first of all, to get rid of that bezel we've got where you see the NAOMI arcade cabinet, if we just go to decorations, and I'm going to go to none. Shader set, I'm going to just take this down to enhanced. And game aspect ratio, I'm going to stretch this one to 16:9. Integer scaling, I'm going to put this to on to give it more of a blur effect rather than have the pixelation as we just seen. Vertical sync, yes, to reduce some screen tear that we could see in some of these 3D games. Now, if you find your controller is a little bit sporadic and it don't seem to make sense what you're pressing corresponding with the game, just go down to controls, player 1 control type, and from here, you've got a selection of different control types. So if you're playing a light gun game, then obviously go down to light gun. I'm going to just go to Dreamcast controller. Of course, NAOMI is pretty much the arcade equivalent to the Sega Dreamcast home console. So let's boot up this game again. And if you should see missing BIOS files, as you can see, this runs fine for me. And there we go, we got NAOMI in 16:9, integer scaling is on, so it's not quite exactly full screen because it's condensed it and it's made the image a lot better for you.
Please select.
And there you go, as you can see, not so much pixelation, it's more smooth, and that's down to the integer scaling that I've enabled.
Asphalt Cowboy. Ready, go!
Good morning, New York. 1110 KRW Super Express Truckers Network. Here is our first song to wake you up. Here we go.
Shift up.
We truckers are considered real professionals at making our deliveries on time. So
And there you go, so we got Sega NAOMI 1 up and running, so if we quit out of this, and next thing I'm going to do is show you how to get Sega NAOMI 2 up and running. Okay, so that's Sega NAOMI 1 dealt with, so let's move on to Sega NAOMI 2. So for this, I've got a game in my folder to test this, and what I was saying a minute ago about some games only requiring a .zip, this particular game is also going to be requiring a .chd, as we can see. So let me show you how to get this up and running. So what we're going to do is once again head into the Retrobat directory. So right click on your shortcut, open file location. This time go to ROMs, and we're going to go to NAOMI 2 this time. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just drag my two files. So we got the zip and the .chd, which is in a folder. I'm going to just drag these into my Retrobat NAOMI 2 ROMs folder. So once that's done, just head back out and go into the BIOS. Now this time around, what we're going to do under the BIOS folder is go to the DC, that's Dreamcast folder, and your NAOMI 2 BIOS file, you're going to need to drag into this folder just here. So once you've done that, let's just open up Retrobat again. Okay, so we can now see NAOMI 2 appear, and I've got my game inside. So let's just head over to Advanced System Options, and for this particular game, it's going to require the second option, which is Demule NAOMI, to run this game. If I run it through Libretto Flycast, it won't load. So just be sure that if a game bounces you back or it says an emulator crashed or whatever, just make sure to set it over to the other emulator. So let's open up this Beach Spikers game. And there we go, we now have NAOMI 2 up and running. Awesome.
Thank you. Enjoy the game. Please select your
So let's just exit out of here. And of course, just grabs this some artwork. So to do this, main menu, scraper, and just scrape now. And that's going to grab us Beach Spikers artwork, hopefully. So main menu, game settings, update game lists, and there we have it. Now, if we go back to view options, advanced system options, underneath Demule NAOMI, we got the same options as on NAOMI 1, which I did just a minute ago. So decorations is going to give you some bezels. Shader set is going to give you some further enhancements, including scan lines. Internal resolution, you're going to be able to make your games look much sharper, much cleaner, a bit more modern. And vertical sync is obviously there to eliminate screen tear on 3D games. And game aspect ratio. I'm going to get you set up with TRIFORCE through Retrobat. So in this tutorial, I'm specifically going to go for the Mario Kart Arcade's GP2. So we got some codes just here. So it's not just a case of just putting your game into the folder in Retrobat. There's a bit more to this one. So just follow what I'm doing and remember to hit notifications so you catch up with all the new Retrobat videos I got coming up. So let's get into this. So what we're going to do first of all is open up the Retrobat directory. So right click on the desktop shortcut if that's where yours is. Open file location. And from here, obviously, we're going to go into the ROMs folder. And if we just drag this down until we get to TRIFORCE, we find TRIFORCE just here, and just drag your Mario Kart Arcade's GP2 into that folder. So next thing we need to do is actually download the emulator for this. So if we go to emulators just here, and we go down to the Dolphin TRIFORCE, which is where the emulator is going to install to, it's completely empty at the moment. So what I'm going to do is open up Retrobat and actually install it from here. So all we're going to do is just find the Retrobat icon and download that emulator from there. And the one you want is Dolphin WX TRIFORCE. So let's just open this up and it will download and install it. And the emulator Dolphin TRIFORCE is not installed. So obviously we want to install this one. So press yes. And let that install. And once this opens up, we still need some work to do inside of here. So for now, what I'm going to do is just close this one down and close down Retrobat. So we now have the emulator downloaded into our folder, as we can see just here. It's now downloaded the contents. So next thing we're going to want to do is open up Dolphin from here. And what I tend to do is actually add my game into this Dolphin. So what I'm going to do for this is just go to File, browse for ISOs, and then just navigate until we find where your game is. So Retrobat, and this is in my C drive obviously, and ROMs. And my Mario Kart GP2 will be located, of course, in my TRIFORCE folder, which is just here. And I'm going to just select this folder, and that's going to add that one in. So we've got that one installed now into Dolphin itself, so that's fine. Now we've got a load of codes just here, and what we're going to need to do, I'm going to leave this in my description, so it will just be a matter of you copy and pasting this and copying what I'm doing. So we're just going to highlight all of this codes just here. If you right click on it whilst it's highlighted in blue, and left click on copy, so that's now copied. What we're going to do next is go back into Dolphin just here, and if I right click on that game and select properties, I'm then going to go to edit config, which you can find just here. And this has now opened up a note document. So just a minute ago when I copied all that text, what I'm going to do inside here is just right click and then left click on paste. And then we're going to file and then save, and you can close this down. Okay, so once you've done that, just go to patches and make sure everything here is checked as so. If we go to close, what I'm going to do now is open this game up outside of Retrobat just to test this. So double left click.
Mario!
Okay, now what I recommend you doing, if you want to change how this looks, don't do it inside Retrobat. I recommend doing this where we are already with a standalone emulator. So to configure graphics, all we're going to do is go to graphics just here. And from here, we can full screen this to 1080p if that's what you want. We can also use aspect ratio, which I recommend to force 16:9 to give it a full screen. And also be sure to use check full screen so that's enabled. And also check VSync. Now, if we go under enhancements, we got internal resolution, but just be aware that the further up you go, up to say 4 times, the more pressure it's going to put on your hardware. So, you know, that's entirely up to your hardware, what you're running. I personally recommend taking this up to around 2 times to 3 times if you've got a modest setup. So we've also got anti-aliasing, and again, if you've got the 16 samples, that's going to be a little bit more tearing on your hardware. So if your hardware can handle it, then by all means go the 16 samples. That's entirely up to you. So let's close this again, and I'm going to close down outside of this standalone emulator, which Retrobat has downloaded, and I'm going to head back into Retrobat and open it up through there.
Peach, shot an item!